I first was exposed to the concept of water activity from one of my professors on my PhD committee. That was one of his areas of research, the effect of water activity on certain chemical reactions in food, their reaction rate. I worked for Kellogg, and we were many times blending different fruit and nut pieces into dry cereal flakes. We had to make sure that the water activity of those fruit and nut pieces were correct, because if they were put into a box with cereal flakes, moisture transfer would definitely occur, and if they didn't meet specifications, we could end up with fruit pieces that were like gravel. If during production something slips up and you inadvertently produce a lot of product, meaning a batch of the wrong water activity, it can cause terrible problems in the marketplace. In other words, people would see defects occurring in your product that might prevent them from ever buying it again, such as mold or some other issue. Was in the smoked salmon industry. In the smoked salmon industry, you rely on salt content and water activity. In the old days, when I was getting my undergraduate, I worked in a laboratory. This is about the time they invented dirt. I worked in a laboratory where we weren't really measuring water activity. We were measuring moisture content and salt content, and my project was to look at these very rapid tools for measuring moisture and water. They weren't very effective, and unfortunately this was in the northwestern Oregon area. We had a producer who was making smoked salmon who their smokehouse malfunctioned and allowed more of the air to recycle instead of move out of the smokehouse, and so the fish inside remained too moist. Even with a proper salt concentration, it allowed the growth of some terrible spoilage bacteria. These were vacuum packaged products where Clostridium botulinum could have grown. He was lucky that it was a spoilage bacteria instead, but it was a gas producer. And he literally had packets of smoked salmon blowing up in small supermarkets and mom and pop stores all over Oregon before he got control of it. So water activity is a very important tool. What I'm saying is this: if you are taking samples out of production and sending them off, your people and your production managers are going to make darn sure that it's below the target. In other words, they're not going to make a mistake on 50,000 pounds of product. So they're most likely going to drive moisture out, over dry, push that water activity down, maybe 0.01 or 0.02 units. That could be 10,000 pounds of water. Selling your product instead, selling it at the target water activity means that you might have 2 to 5% more yield in your process, and therefore you would be able to control it more tightly and increase the profitability of your processing scheme.